is the term tryout killing your all-star recruitment. On our rubric, if you're in the low range of level 2, then you are really what we would call a level 1+ athlete. I know there's people who do team reveals, and I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm going to tell you I don't. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cheer Biz Podcast. Today, we are going to be diving in how and why I do tryouts and team placements the way that I do. Now, before we get into the episode, please make sure that you have gone over to Cheer Gym Owners on Facebook and All-Star Cheer Coaches and Owners on Facebook and joined both of those groups if you're a gym owner or a gym owner and coach, or just a coach in the coaches page. If you're looking to learn more about how next generation gym owners can help you grow your gym, or you're a manager or coach who knows that your owner needs some help in running an effective gym, then please reach out. You can go to nextgenowners.com where you can learn more about how to book a call. Now, if you're not quite ready to join the academy and you've joined our Facebook groups, then you need to make sure that you join us for our conference in Dallas this summer, June 20th through the 22nd. It's going to be absolutely amazing. We are actually doing sessions on Friday with specific skill sessions, so you can even get some actual hands-on skills training on Friday, not just Saturday and Sunday. We have more vendors than any other conference. It's going to be the biggest and best conference in the cheer industry this year. And if you're an owner that's headed to the All-Star World Championships and you have a little bit of time, and when I say time, I mean you're willing to dedicate the time to growing your business and you're looking for an intensive training, we are doing a owners only intensive course. It's a one-day course on Monday, right before All-Star Worlds. You're not going to want to miss it. And we're only taking 10 owners. So this is for people who are really looking to grow their business and dive into the things that they can be doing better headed into 2025 and 2026. Now, let's get into the episode. So it's on everyone's mind. We are headed into tryout season before you know it. I told my athletes the other night at practice, I said, you guys, we have 3 months, not even 3 months left in the regular season. It is almost over. We are headed into, for us, we compete 3 different weekends in March with my teams, and then we're done with regular season, and it is all end of season. For us, we do D2 Summit and Worlds, and that is all we're focused on. And so it is tryout time. We do our first tryout in April. We actually do it right before we head to Worlds. We do our first evaluation is what we call it. And so I'm going to talk to you about how I run my evaluation process. Now, if you've been listening to the podcast for a long time, you've heard me talk about this before. I have not changed it too much, but I have made some tweaks and some adjustments. And I'm making some more tweaks and adjustments this year as we just continue to refine and change things up. So I want you to be prepared and know what we do and why we do it the way we do. So number one, I did a podcast a couple years ago and I titled it, "Is the term tryout killing your all-star recruitment?" And I firmly believe in that. So we actually, even though you'll hear me go between the word tryout and evaluation frequently, we do use the word evaluation more frequently. And what we are doing is a level evaluation when we host what most people would normally consider tryouts. So how we do it is this. When you register for our program, first off, people register for the season. They can do early registration, like early, where they save $100. They can do basically on-time registration, which is a month prior to tryouts, and that will save them $50. And then there is a late, really more on-time, like they're registering basically once tryouts have started, they're actually registering for the season. That's going to cost them a little bit extra just because they didn't register early. We want people to register early. So we do registration, and that lets us know kind of what we have going on. And when people register, people sign up for a evaluation time. Our evaluations take roughly 5 minutes per group. Now, to come in, they're going to be in the gym for about 30 minutes total because they'll come in and they'll warm up and they'll practice and they'll do some things ahead of time before they actually come in front of us for their evaluation time that they have scheduled. We, prior to our evaluation day, do a clinic. At this clinic, we work on tumbling. We do some stunting just for fun. We work jumps. And this year I haven't done this in the past, I'm considering having them learn a dance. Why is that? Because dance actually really does matter on the score sheet. It could influence my decision to put someone on a team. If they're a really amazing performer and they're maybe just a little bit subpar on some of their skills, then that actually might take them over the finish line. And so it's something I want to start considering as I make my evaluations, which I historically haven't. So we are looking at adding dance as a portion of our evaluations this year, which is new for us. I know a lot of people already do. The reason I took it out many years ago is it just really didn't have any impact on the decisions that we made when we actually picked the teams. And also, so many kids just sucked at it because it was more of an effort in their ability to cram and learn new material than it was their ability to perform with time and repetition and coaching on that actual dance. So that's why we went away from it. I'm still working out the exact nuances of it. So athletes will come in, and when they come in, we have a rubric, which we go over with them the night before to make sure that they understand absolutely what they need to throw to get the best evaluation that they can. And so we will go over our rubric. Our rubric has various columns. It has classic, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, level 6, and it has low, medium, and high. And you will find that it is very similar to the score sheet that we follow. And what it is looking for is standing and running tumbling categories that fall within the low, medium, and high ranges. And what we ask athletes to do when they come in for their evaluation is we have them throw their best running tumbling pass. We have them throw their best standing tumbling pass or passes, and their jumps and or jumps to tumbling. And we look at all of those things combined to give them a level determination and a level placement. Now, on our rubric, and we go over this with the parents ahead of time, we do this through parent education and videos and things that get emailed out to them, where if you are on our rubric, if you're in the low range of level 2, then you are really what we would call a level 1 plus athlete, which means you're not truly a level 2 mastered athlete. You're not really at the competitive level 2 level yet. You're throwing some basic level 2 skills, but they're not at a level that they can be performed consistently in a routine. You need to be in the medium and the high range to do that. And believe it or not, most of our high range skills are the level above. So like level 2 high range is a round up back handspring back tuck, is a serious standing back handspring. It is like the baseline skills for level 3. And that's with a run, not a power hurdle for the running tumbling. And those skills are what we're looking at. And if you're in the high range, then you're solidly level 2. If you're in the low range, then you're really the level before with a plus. Now, when we give someone a plus, it means we're interested at looking at you for both levels, and we're going to determine which level you fit best into. So we approach it from that standpoint. Now, we also do evaluate technique. We have it listed out what I think we do low, medium, and high technique as well. And if you're in the medium or high technique, then you would be whatever skills in that rubric you're performing, then you would keep that. So if you're performing at a medium range, which says you are level 2 and you have medium technique or even high technique, then you are a solid level 2 athlete. But if you have low technique, meaning the skill barely happened, it lacked power, legs were bent, arms were apart, it didn't have good technique to it, good execution to it, then we're actually going to bump you down, and we're going to say you really should have been performing skills a level below on the rubric and not been quite as high. And that means that you really are now, again, you're a level 1 plus. So we evaluate athletes in that manner. Now, yes, we are mostly looking at their tumbling skills. We look at their stunting the night before in their group evaluation, which is not really an evaluation. It's really just an open training session that is not required. And we do that because tumbling is, for us in our gym, it's a great baseline. Now, we reserve the right to invite people to specific training groups to see how they perform. So we will have athletes that come to 2 different level groups to see where they fit best. And that even includes athletes that don't have the tumbling skills, but we know can contribute in another area, whether that be as a back spot or a top or a main or a secondary, whatever it is. We do invite people on a case-by-case basis to attend other level training groups. We are very open and upfront with this information ahead of our level evaluations. Everyone knows where the rubric is. They know how to access it. We go over it with the athletes the night before. If athletes just don't read the rubric well, and aren't prepared and they come out and they throw a skill that puts them in the low range, but we see that they could be in a higher range, we'll say, hey, have you ever done this skill? And if they say, oh yeah, I just didn't think to throw it, and then we'll be like, hey, can I see that? Or wow, that was a really great round up back handspring back tuck. Can I see it out of a power hurdle? Or do you have any sort of a specialty into it? Or can you do a punch front? Like, we'll ask those clarifying questions because we want the kids to have the best opportunity to showcase their skills as they can. From there, we will announce our level groups. Now, I mentioned we do our first tryout prior to Worlds, which means teams are still practicing. So we actually practice, we do an early tryout, and we let those athletes practice together prior to everyone else's tryout. And we do this because there are people who come from high school or come from our classic program where their season is over and they want to keep working. They want to get training right away. And we want to get them training too, because it's just better for our team. So we train with them in just groups. And then after Worlds and D2 Summit, we come back and we'll host our second evaluation, which is really our on-time evaluation. And from there, athletes get placed into level groups. We try to build our level groups so they're fairly large. We do occasionally separate by age, depending on what those age separations are. But if the athletes are junior to senior age, we're just going to put them all together unless there's just a bajillion of them. So if they could fit kind of into there, we're not quite sure if it's going to be a junior team or a senior team or two teams or what it's going to look like. We'll just put them all together from a practice space perspective, a coaching perspective, because we like to be able to look at the dynamics of different things. So we go into our team evaluation time. So we do this. We used to do it for 4 weeks. This is a change. We used to do this for 4 weeks. Now we do it for 2, which is really 4 total practices. So it's not a lot, but it's still enough for us to play with the mix, play with the dynamic, and look at a lot of different options. It also is a way for me to have conversations with athletes and for coaches to have conversations with athletes so they can prep them for what happens when the team placements are announced. So we practice in those level groups. And if you're anything like me, you probably have had those years where you have like 92 different spreadsheets and you put it together a million different ways and you look at different age grids and like, okay, could I make a junior team, or would this make sense to be a senior team, or well, that would cut this kid and this kid and make, now where do we put them? And you always have those things that you have to work through. And I'll be honest, yes, micro programs, it's hard. You have to be like, okay, well, what do we do? But I don't know that it ever gets easier. I've never been a D1 truly large program with like 300 kids, but I feel like having talked to those gym owners and those coaches, they have the same challenges where they're like, yeah, we just don't know where to put this kid. Like they're, because of their age and because of other things, we're not quite sure where they land. So I think you're always going to have that. A couple lessons that I've learned as we go into team placements is, one, I'm never going to create a team for an athlete, meaning I don't want to have the 1 or 2 kids that are senior age that just aren't that level or ready for the next level up. We don't really have a spot for them. So we create a team for them. I always think that is an error. I would rather be honest with them and say, hey, unfortunately, based off of your age and your skills, we don't have a team for you this year. You can be an alternate on this team if you get your skills up, those kind of things, and keep them involved in the program. But if I have to let them go, I have to let them go. It's better than creating a team that shouldn't exist just because there is a kid with a birthday on a particular date. Now, this is going to get even more complicated with this whole junior flex division from the USASF because, gosh, now the world is your oyster. You can put like 7-year-olds and 17-year-olds can be on the same team essentially, because you could be 16 in the calendar year, but then turn 17, and you could be 7 turning 8, or I think even 6 turning 7, depending on how they set up the birthday stuff. So there's a lot of flexibility there. I'm worried about that division, but I don't want to go down that rabbit trail. So we will go into our team evaluations for 2 weeks, and we look at different stunting dynamics. We make sure we have the right number of back spots, the right number of bases, the right number of flyers. We also just know, hey, this is what we have to recruit. This is what we have to start advertising for after we place this team and start searching for. Or we go, okay, well, maybe we can fill that with crossovers. And we look at all of the different dynamics over that 2 weeks. It allows us to test things. It allows us to try certain stunt groups together. It allows us to start training skills. It allows us to look at maturity. It allows us to make sure that athletes were not tryout rock stars where they come in and throw skills that they've never landed before, and or make sure that they just didn't have a bad day. And maybe they do have a beautiful tuck or a beautiful layout, but they just didn't throw it well that day because they were feeling a little bit off or a little bit nervous. Whatever the case may be, it allows us to get a little bit longer look at them. For my more difficult teams to make, I have conversations with kids. The last 20 minutes of practice is me touching base with the athletes and saying, hey, just so you know, if we were to place teams today, this is where you would land. I want athletes, when I announce the team list, for people to only get good surprises. I want athletes, so I'll tell athletes, hey, you're on the bubble when I know they're probably going to make it, but there's still a possibility they couldn't. Hey, you're on the bubble. You're not quite there yet, but you're close. You're in the mix, but it's an unknown based off of the dynamic of the team. Or I will tell a kid to their face, I want you to understand that you're not going to make it, that your best case scenario is to be an alternate, or your best case scenario is to be a crossover to another team that's going to prepare you for this one. And let them know that so they're mentally and emotionally prepared. So when they get that email, they're not shocked. Now, how do we do our team announcements? So I know there's people who do team reveals, and I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm going to tell you I don't. I don't do a team reveal. How they find out is they get an email and we post stuff on social media, and we use numbers rather than names. And I think when we do team announcements, we do a first name, but we don't do a last name on social media. But we will post and we will email. We don't do a team reveal where the kids come in and open a box and their balloon comes out, or they open a letter, those kind of things. I think all those things are really fun, but I'll tell you why I don't do them. Number one is I don't think there's any data that they really show that they increase retention, and they can be expensive. I've seen people spend a lot of money on those team reveals, and I want to make sure that I'm getting a return for those kind of events. And number two is, no matter what, no matter the amount of preparation I give to an athlete, there are going to be kids that get bad news after we make our tryout announcements. And I want to avoid them having to go through the emotions of getting the bad news in a group setting. I just feel like that's not fair to the kiddo. Now, I get that there is a counter argument of, yes, but then I want them to see how many of their friends are on the team that we place them on, or I want them to be excited about the coaches and the team, and we get to frame that. And I get that perspective. I still would just rather them be able to go through it in the privacy of their own home, their own room, whatever it is, cry those tears that they didn't make the team that they wanted to make, and then move forward rather than make it a big deal, make it uncomfortable for everyone else who is excited, and uncomfortable for them. And I know a number of people who have had those kind of experiences where they've had people kind of ruin a team reveal because athlete didn't make a team, and parents get angry and start yelling at other parents, or start yelling at the coaches, or yelling at the kid, or the kid is crying and being hysterical. So I just try to avoid those things personally, because I just don't see the benefit, and the risk versus reward for me isn't there. So that's why I don't do a team reveal in that fashion. After that, we place our teams and we practice in those teams, and we don't really finalize anything until after camp when we start choreography. So things are always in flux for us through choreography. And honestly, I rarely have a solid team at the beginning of the season. There's always, whether there be injuries or people who move away or things that happen, like every single year, I feel like I'm having to replace at least one athlete on a team throughout the season. I always tell them at camp as we sit around campfire, and it's one of the things we do at Dream Camps is we do a lot of like team goal setting and things during camp at the end of the day, one of the days. And so we do this thing we call campfire. We sit around and we talk and we do goal setting and all that. And every year I'm like, it's my goal to have a season where the team that I started with at camp that's kicking booty is the same team that I compete with at the end of the season. And it hasn't happened yet. I mean, it just doesn't tend to happen because of a variety of issues. So things are flexible throughout the year. After we do our team announcements, we do a team signing day. That is something that we started doing that was a lot of fun, and I don't know that it helps our retention, but that was kind of we don't do a reveal, but we do a signing day. It's also, from an administrative perspective, really valuable because we have them come in and we make sure we get all their paperwork, we get all their cards on file. We do a ton of pro shop sales. It's one of our best pro shop sale days because people are excited and they want to buy their gear for their team and extra things like that. And so we do a ton of pro shop sales. We take a ton of pictures. We get a ton of stuff for social media. It's great for a lot of different reasons. So I love the team signing day. I think it is very valuable and absolutely worth doing. we're trying to grow it and make it bigger and bigger. Every year we have kids that, don't make it or can't come. Even though we put out the dates super early, I think it's a really valuable thing. And I would love to see all of our athletes doing it and getting those big group pictures and putting on the hat and doing all those things. We kind of make it a big production as much as we can so they have something to brag about on social media. And every year the kids do have a good time, the kids that come. So that is how we run our tryout process. Now, I know there are people who've done, we bring them in and we evaluate their skills and we have them stunt in groups. Here's the reasons I don't do those things. So I don't pick teams based off of a couple day tryout because I've had times where I don't like the fights. The fights now when placing teams are almost non-existent. Like, I don't need the other coaches to even be involved in the level evaluation because it is so straightforward on our rubric. And worst case scenario, we give an athlete a plus so they can attend 2 practices and we can see where they fit best. And doubly, now that we use the CheerSync app, it allows us to video things and coaches can see what athletes get and they can watch those videos. So if they disagree, we can have a discussion, but they don't because it's super smooth. And then when we go to place teams, there's almost no argument. There's some debate, there's some discussion of well, what about this kid? And what about maybe this team isn't the right fit for them? But I can remember the years that we did our 2-day tryout where they came in and, tried out for 2 different days and they did tumbling and they did stunting and we put together random hodgepodge groups, but your best kid wouldn't be there. So you wouldn't have a good back spot or whatever the case may be. And then we try to put together teams and the fighting that would happen over staff. We had papers that represented each kid and there was just such a different dynamic of well, I want them. No, they don't belong on that team. Well, they're not good enough and I don't like them. And that kid slacked on my team all season. And now you're going to move them to this higher level team. And we took all of that out. All of that emotion is gone. Now, do we still consider those things? Sure we do. I'm a big believer that you should look at an athlete from a whole perspective, a holistic perspective, but I'm also not necessarily going to punish an athlete just because they had a year where they were not the best on their team in terms of attitude or effort and say, you're never allowed to move up. Now there's certain times, right, where you might say that, but I like to give kids a chance. And I love the level group practices because it gives them a chance to prove that other coach wrong or prove yourself right, that you're capable of competing at this level. So I don't like to write kids off, but that's why I don't do a team placement right after tryouts. I just never felt like we got it right. It was nonstop fights and yelling and screaming and it just wasn't a vibe. And no matter what, even if we didn't yell and scream, there were coaches that felt like they weren't listened to or that they didn't get what they wanted or they got the trickle down. And now when it's just hey, these are the kids who have the level appropriate skills in your level that you're coaching. These are the kids. Now you get to pick from those kids and make your team. And most of the time, the level groups are pretty close to what the teams are, but they change. They absolutely do change. And sometimes we have more, we'll have, 27 kids working out in a level 2 group and they don't all make level 2. We'll have 38 kids working out in my level 4 group. They don't all make medium 4. Only 30 do, or even less sometimes because I pull over some crossovers. So there's a variety of things that occur, but that's how we run our evaluations. And overall, we've found it to be very, very successful. And I think that it has been a huge part of our long-term competitive success, and seeing the consistency that we do have on teams since we enacted it has been significantly better. So I really appreciate the way we do it. Always looking to improve it, but that is how we run it. Now, is it the next gen way? No, it's Dan Cotton's way at Oregon Dream Teams. I know there's people who've done it and loved it, and I know there's people who've tried it and hated it. You have to pick what works for you. I'm just telling you what has worked in our gym. And I think the majority of the teams in Oregon, programs in Oregon, are now doing it more that style now, because it just gives you a little bit more time to make sure that you're right. All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I'm sorry, I'm still sick, and I recorded a bunch of things before this, so my voice is raw, but I appreciate you listening. Thank you for being fans and supporters of the podcast. I really appreciate it. And with that, we will catch you on the next episode.